Good evening and welcome to our ReggieCon panel discussing My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. We are thrilled to have you join us for our second year of ReggieCon at Illinois State University and our second ReggieCon panel of the 2021-22 year. My name is Amelia Noel Elkins and I am the Interim Assistant Vice President for Student Success at Illinois State. We are thrilled tonight to join in the celebration of LGBTQ History Month through this conversation. Before we begin the panel, just a few details to keep everything running smoothly for all of you in the audience. Please know that this session is being recorded and will be archived on the ReggieCon website. Also, if you need confirmation that you attended tonight's ReggieCon event, we will post a link to a form for you to submit a request for confirmation of attendance. While presenters' video and audio are on, we cannot hear or see any guests. However, we will be monitoring the Q&A function, so we encourage you to ask questions of the presenters. After some initial conversation and discussion, our panelists will be taking questions from the attendees. Please visit the ReggieCon website at illinoisstate.edu/ReggieCon to find ReggieCon merchandise. A portion of the proceeds from the ReggieCon merchandise sales will be donated to the Red and White Fund to benefit Illinois State students in financial need. Also at the ReggieCon website, you can find recordings of previous panels and information about ReggieCon panels for the remainder of the 21-22 academic year. Our hope is that in the spring, we'll be able to host a live event for ReggieCon, so keep checking the website for updates. At this time, I am pleased to introduce our moderator and panelist for this discussion of My Favorite Thing is Monsters, Dr. Scott Jordan, who is a professor and chair of psychology here at Illinois State. Scott, I will hand it off to you.
Thank you, Dr. Noah Elkins, and welcome everyone to ReggieCon, the con that asks the question, what's your story? I'm Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher here at Illinois State University. And before we begin tonight, I quickly want to acknowledge those people that actually make these things happen. I'd like to thank Dr. Amelia Noah Elkins, Dr. Jana Albrecht, Mr. Sean Thornton, Miss Danny Schroeder, and Miss Summer Simmons. Tonight, we come together to celebrate LGBTQ History Month with a discussion of Emil Ferris's award-winning graphic novel, My Favorite Thing is Monsters. Joining me on the Reggie crew tonight is the one, the only Dr. Teresa Rojas. Teresa, please come in, tell the audience a little something about who you are, and then please tell us briefly your favorite memory or what it felt like to actually be reading this graphic novel.
I am Dr. Teresa Rojas, and I am professor of English and also the first professor of ethnic studies at Modesto Junior College here in the beautiful Central Valley, California. And I am also the director of the Latinx Comic Arts Festival that we host here at the college. I'm very excited to be here. And I am still sort of stunned by my experience of reading this book, and I'm sure that this is a common experience. I've had the book for quite a while, and I've sort of started it, and it feels daunting because of the size. But man, once I started and really focused, and I just can't wait for this discussion is what I'm going to say, because there's so much. And I am glad that there are a number of us, because if it was just like two of us, I don't even know where I would go with it. But it's a gorgeous experience. It's one of those gorgeous comics experiences that we don't get enough of in life. And
oh, fantastic.
Yes.
Very well said. Also on the ReggieCon crew, the hardest working man in comics, Mr. Victor Dandridge Jr. Victor, please come on in, tell the audience a little something about who you are, as well as the feeling you had while reading this amazing graphic novel.
So I'm a self-publishing comic creator born and raised from Columbus, Ohio. As Scott said, I'm the hardest working man in comics. Also, as Scott has deemed me, a phenomenological narratologist, yes. Which I'm using more frequently every day. It's easier to say. While reading this is so very interesting because I am, I suppose, the baby of the group, generally speaking. And so the time period of this was not what I resonated with, but it was actually growing up with one of my best friends. His name is Emil, and it was kind of the idea of the juxtaposition of our friendship, where we knew each other from church, went to the same school, but we didn't hang out at school, and the variance of friendships, and how even all these years later, it's still like he's my brother, but there's so many things that we just kind of coasted through life on a separate path that I really think this book really kind of hit home about.
Oh, that's fantastic. We look forward to hearing more about that as we go through. And now on the ReggieCon crew, my friend, colleague, and partner in crime and all things nerdy, the one, the only Dr. Eric Wesselman. Eric, please come on in, tell the audience a little something about who you are, as well as the feeling you had as you read this amazing graphic novel.
So I'm Dr. Eric Wesselman. I'm a social psychologist here at ISU. I spend most of my time studying issues of social inclusion and exclusion, but recently I've started connecting my various psychological interests in storytelling and popular culture, such as comic books and film. In terms of reading this particular work, a lot of complex feels. Nostalgia, for which I'll talk a little bit more later, but also, levity for some of the humorous moments where Karen is trying to make sense of things in a younger person's mindset. Of course, then also heartbreak when Karen is dealing with heavy real-world trauma, especially when listening to Anka's reminiscence of living in the Weimar Republic and then later Nazi Germany. I'm sure we'll get into all of that much more later.
Excellent. Thank you much. Before we go on to our special guest, I just want to share what it felt like for me to read this. I was raised in the 60s and the 70s, and actually was raised in Aurora, Illinois, which is about an hour west from Chicago. Not as urban as Chicago, and not as urban as the setting of this book, but the mentions of MLK, the mentions of all the pop culture vibes that were in the air, plus, my God, creature features, the horror shows, and watching them, finding people I could watch them with, asking my parents if I could stay up by myself so I could watch these because no one else would. All of that nostalgia came in and created a background for the amazing journey that Karen goes on in this story. So it was quite a bit of fun. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce tonight's special guests. We begin with comic scholar supreme, Dr. Rachel Miller. Rachel, please tell the audience a little something about who you are, as well as the feeling you had as you read this amazing graphic novel.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Scott. It's really an honor to be back here with the ReggieCon crew and Emil Ferris, of course. So really excited to be here. But my name is Dr. Rachel Miller. I'm also based out of Columbus, like Victor, and I I am an instructor of visual culture at the Columbus College of Art and Design, where I work in their comics and narrative practice major. And more recently, I've begun working as a managing editor for the Comics Journal as well. So kind of doing the hustle on all ends. and honestly, the first time that I read this, if there was ever a book that felt like it was made for me, this is that book. I used to live in Chicago. I spent, many lonely Thursday nights going to the Art Institute, which we could go to for free on Thursdays, and enjoying the art there. And, I love all things monsters. I love diaries. I love, stories about growing up feeling weird. And so this book felt like a warm hug in a lot of ways. Even though there are some dark things in this book, but yeah.
Fantastic. We're so glad you could join us. And now, before I introduce tonight's very, very special guest, I'd like to let the audience know that tonight's graphic novel is the recipient of 3 Eisner Awards. Eisner Awards for Best Graphic Album New, Best Writer Artist, and Best Coloring categories. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my extreme pleasure to introduce the author of My Favorite Thing is Monsters, Miss Emil Ferris. Emil, please come in. Tell everybody a little something about who you are.
Okay, that's the best entrance.
That's so far.
I want to tell you how moving, Teresa, all of you, Rachel, I just was very moved. And of course, Scott and Eric and Victor, and Amelia, of course. But I'm very moved by the things that you said. They made me very happy. Thank you for that. And these are dark times. I spend a great deal of time alone. So having that feedback, you would think it wouldn't be so wonderful for me, but it really is. Knowing that, you know, I wrote something and you were able to live inside of it and add your imagination to the substance of it, it's very meaningful to me. And I want to thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, I think we thank you for being here chatting with us about this amazing work. Emil, can you say something about the feels you had writing it? You know, just a memory that sticks out in terms of what it was like to create this masterful piece of work.
I created it not really knowing if anybody would ever read it. You know, as most things that artists make, we don't know if they're ever going to get into the hands of really anyone. And so I did it for myself. I told the story for myself when I was 16 years old. A family member threw away all of my diaries and all of my notebooks.
Oh my goodness.
And I lost a stack of them that was I'm sorry?
I said, that's horrifying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was horrifying. It was sad. It was a sad moment. But I decided to recreate them. I decided, you know, I had lost the ability to draw, and I felt I had lost all the notebooks. And so I decided to create them, but with, of course, the desire to communicate a message. And it was a really weird time. I was so sleep deprived. I'll just tell you a little sleep deprived joke. I was so sleep deprived while I was making it, and I would push myself really hard. One day I just woke up and I realized I'd been up drawing all night, and my daughter and I looked at my drawing, and I had just drawn, I said, I think it was meant to be D's. And all it was, and this is terrifying, all it was a whirlpool of black circles that I had drawn because I was so tired that I was dreaming while I was drawing. And the book required that level of commitment where I literally worked 16 hours a day, you know, because my hand is not cooperative in the same way that it once was. It's much harder to draw. So it was funny like that, but it was also, you know, the reason you have emotions when you read the book is because I had emotions while I wrote the book. And I think there's something about that. I think we put our emotional content, and those of you who are writers and artists and academics and you know, communicate the passion that you have about things. That passion is adoptable by the people within your sphere because you are generating that energy, that vibration, because we're vibratory beings. And I think the vibration of the feelings I had went into every single line of drawing, because I was, number one, really grateful that I was able to draw. And number two, my daughter would walk into the room and her thing was, who are you crying for now? And she would, because it was one of my characters, I would just be so deep into the feelings about whatever was happening. They were real for me. So I'm really pleased that they're real for you as well.
Well, that's fantastic. And in another panel someday, we'll actually talk about the science of dynamical systems theory and the vibrations you're putting off on the page, because I think you're absolutely right.
I have to hear more about that. That coalescence.
I want to be on that panel.
Yeah, I want to hear that. You must tell me when that panel happens so I can
We'll
listen
call it Wild Comics. I'll get a hold of all of you. And so here's the format of what we're going to do here. I've asked each of the ReggieCon panelists plus Rachel to pick their favorite frame, page, theme, whatever from the graphic novel. They have sent those to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Teresa. I'm going to show you the frame, share with you the frame she picked. She's going to take a minute or two to describe, maybe three, why she chose it. And then we're all going to riff on her answer for a few minutes. And then we're going to go to the next person in their frame. So if I interrupt anyone so we can keep moving, please do not be offended. We are going to start then.
So excited.
With Teresa. Teresa, please.
So the concept of choosing a favorite page is, I think, daunting to begin with. But in this book, I was just like, what? No. So let me instead, as I was sort of going back through the book, just thinking about what stands out to me as a moment, right? As a moment that I want to dwell on for a minute. And this one immediately came up for me. And so this is our first introduction to these, to the visual of these. And I just love this page because first of all, it's unexpected that you're going to get this sort of juxtaposition between these and the cranky old lady who's going to get the counter. But I love the color contrast of it. But the first thing that stood out to me when we meet Dees is how beautiful he is on this page, right? I was just like, I don't know you, but I kind of love you already. I'm a little embarrassed to admit that. Maybe I dwelled on that page a little.
Don't be shamed. Don't be shamed.
I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. I was like, how you doing? And the other thing that struck me was that like this was a beautiful Latino man being introduced into this comic. And I was like, oh, I'm going to say what I actually thought. I was like, oh shit. Oh, I love this. I just love this. And so I read it sort of backwards because normally we read, from left to right in the US. And so I should have read the dialogue and then sort of seen the visual of him coming in, but I didn't. It was very backward for me in that I saw this gorgeous figure and I was drawn to that. And I took a moment or two or more to linger there. And then I read the rest of the page. So we've got right then, my brother Dees walked into the restaurant. And then the lady says, and I'm going to do this in a little bit of a voice that was in my head. And she was like, hey there, senor, you're in the wrong place for your kind. You'll want a flamingo dance on down to the taco joint. That was her voice in my head. And he says, yeah, lady, whatever. And then the narration says, Dees always gets rude junk like that because he looks more like my father, who is Mexican. My brother's name is actually Diego Zapata Reyes. Since he was little, people have shortened his name to DZ. When I was little, I called him DZ or Dees, and the name stuck. I just love the visual juxtaposition of these two characters, the like sort of grimy, almost greasiness with the beehive hairdo of this woman, and then this just beautiful juxtaposition of the lines and the color, and so she's in black and white and he's in color, and then you get the narration that's almost a side note on the bottom of that is contextualizing who this guy is. And I love that the word Mexican is there. It's not Latino, not sort of generic, but Mexican. So I was like, that's the page. That is the page. And so I will pause there.
That's excellent. I love your comment on he's in full color and she's in black and white and she's the one spewing hate. Right. Mm-hmm. She's the one being binary and he's the one being full life. And of course, we learn more about him than we ever do about her because he's obviously more interesting.
And he's so peaceful here, too. This is the other thing that I noticed where she's just like she's bringing on something very ugly. And she's depicted as very ugly. I was going to say no offense, but I mean offense. Character. And he's really larger than life in this thing. We get this, the head view, the close-up view. And then right before I turn the page, as I'm starting to turn the page, I notice on his neck, this image, the smallest image of, is it an eyeball? Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, what is that? And then I turn the page and we move on. So I just love this page.
Anyone else?
I'm going to co-sign with Teresa that immediately I got the feel of John Turturro's character from The Big Lebowski. Like, you just get that energy. Like, it's a combination of Big Lebowski and low-key, a Spike Lee joint. Like, he's just sliding into this space, just the coolest guy ever. And even in the face of this ugly woman, and ugly by way of content and her own character, trying to be demeaning to him. And he's just like, Psh, I'm not even worried about you, lady. Like, I'm here to do my thing, and I'm D's. I'm D's, you know? Like, he was literally the coolest guy ever, ever.
I may or may not have been in love with him at this moment. I'm just saying.
He's D's without having to say it, because he just B's D's. I mean,
you know,
that's exactly.
Listen, but Teresa, D's is a heartbreaker. Just let me.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I'm sorry. I just want you to know.
For me. I have so many emotions about this.
We call him Nova, okay? He's the Casanova around these streets. You got to understand. He's amazing.
He's living a life.
Let me linger on this page and be in denial, okay?
There you go. There you go. Anyone else quick comments on this image? All right, then. Why don't we go ahead and move on to, I want to say I did Victor's next.
That is the perfect juxtaposition, transition, segue, because mine is literally the other page.
Is this the right image, Victor?
Yes, okay. Sir, it is. So, and again, when I say literally the opposite page of Teresa's, it is, which makes that so funny. The reason why I fell in love and chose this particular one is because, and I mean this in the most sincere way possible, this is the greatest uncomic I've ever read. And when I say uncomic, let me break that down a little bit. Narratively, from a comic book standpoint, nothing in this book is supposed to work. Virtually nothing. The amount of time that it clearly took to not only illustrate, but to plan, process, put this all together. It is impossible that this is supposed to work as a comic narrative. It doesn't even function in the sense that narrative having beginning, middle, and end. This is a happening. This is, the journal style is much more of a zine oriented piece that's not a comic. Like, it's almost like a pure definitive separation of this thing. And this page in particular was the one that I really felt, in the sense of being a comic, failed the hardest, and it's the most beautiful. I'm a stickler when it comes to lettering. Like, that's a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to comic narratives for me. And the way that you're supposed to read dialogue has to have this intuitive, left to right, top to bottom flow to it. And this doesn't. And it was such a beautiful puzzle to try to figure out. There's pieces where people are responding in a certain bubble to something that's 2-3 bubbles up, and it's not quite the same correlation, but you get it. Like, it's art, and it's the best uncomic piece I've ever read. It's the thing that, now that I have this in my possession, it is the counter that I would offer to Watchmen. When somebody's like, oh, what's the greatest comic you would read? And somebody would say Watchmen, I go, if you're not there, read this. It's something far more intuitive. It's something far more loose. It's not the structured, like cage that Watchmen is. This is something way better, in a sense that anyone can read this. Like, my lovely lady, she's not a huge comic book reader, but she's wanted this book for years. So when this got assigned, she's like, finally, it's now my time. And that's like, throughout the whole narrative, there are so many places where, as a comic, it's not supposed to work, but as a lived-in structural narrative, it doesn't matter. Like, you supersede form and function to just create art that exists, and you're happy about it. You just gotta breathe this book in. And that page was just really like one of the first where I was like, oh, this is about to be an adventure. Just to read this is about to be an adventure.
Victor, if I could follow up, do you think that some of the non-comic that you're discussing is sort of a response to our experience with visual narrative, in terms of being in a comic book format and being used to that, and then having this sort of surprise us?
Absolutely. Because there are times when, there are 2-page spreads that you don't read as 2-page spreads right away, until you get into the narrative and you realize you got to go back and go, reread something. The thing that makes it so special is that you never mind having to reread it. No. That's the thing. Because if anyone else, and I literally mean, if anyone else tried to do this, I think not only would it not be successful, no one would have made it through, because it didn't have the heart and charm that you needed to restructure your own understanding of how this is supposed to work. And that's like, those Eisners, without question, it should have been like 6, 7 more, because this challenges what we understand of comics, and it's brilliant. Absolutely. I want to know how you did this. Like, that's my thing. I've been self-publishing comics for the last 10 years, and I can't figure out how you did it. And that's what has me. Like, it's the idea of looking at something and having lived behind the curtain, but I'm seeing magic for the first time that I don't understand in a medium that I thought I knew intimately. And Emil, I love you and hate you for this. You've ruined me. Like, how do I go to a shop regularly on Wednesday and just not clap? Like, how do I not do that now? Like, that's you've given me such a challenge. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Wow. I'm not supposed to respond here, I think.
He asked you a question. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, please.
It's, I think a lot of it is intuitive, because I wanted to work inside of I really entered my childhood place, and I did it the way I would have done it, the way I did do it. And it didn't have all of the education about what comics are, because in the childhood place, you just do what the child wants to draw a picture, and you draw that picture. And I think we're so much, you as a publisher understand this probably better than most people. You have to look at things with 2 different eyes. You have to say, I'm personally Victor, and this is something I'm reading, but you also have to look at it as, I'm a person who has to see this being, I'm proposing to be the channel for how this gets into the world. So I have to look at this as a consumer as well. But when you're a child, and that's really what's close to being the closest thing to us, because we've all been children, unless we were grown in a lab, which these days I'm not so sure there aren't some of us that have been grown in a lab. But anyway, not to put the lab grown down. I think that it was because the child was in there that she broke all the rules. And, one quick thing I will say to you, when I was about Karen's age, one of my aunts in New Mexico, she sent me a book called My Name is Lion, which was about a Navajo child. And in the book, he is given a notebook. And he says, when you're handed a book with lines, write the other way. Because he is so dedicated to not falling into the capture of a system. And my character is like that. And I think you clearly, Victor, come on, let's be honest. You and Teresa, all of you, you're not people who have been captured in a way. You have this thing living outside of the system, this passion. And I think this book has appealed to people who are much like it. They are the people who are not captured, who have this imagination and can expand, and the book speaks to them. And I'm just so pleased by that. I can't tell you,
Thank you.
That's fantastic. One thing I wanted to just quickly add to what Victor said about this image is the puppet man on the table who's experiencing all the grief he's hearing that they don't know he's hearing. And his little dummy looking at him from the side actually amplifies it even more, right? Because he's being observed as we watch them. So the artistry here, as Victor's already said, is just simply stunning. And I think what we're going to do now is go on to Eric's image.
Can I add something super fast before we go on?
Please go ahead.
And that is, you can't see it in the image, but in the book, if you look on that page, if you look on the side, where the pages connect, there are all these little pen marks there, ballpoint pen marks. And I was like, when do we get to see that? I love that. I love that sort of breaking out from the story into the process, even just for a super quick second as you're reading. Yeah. And to be able to go back to that and linger and be like, that's what we do when we create. That's exactly what we do when we create. We're like, testing colors, testing pens, throwing things out. And I love that we can see that it was included. It wasn't edited out.
Excellent. We're going to go on to Eric here. So Eric, please explain why you chose this as your favorite frame.
So it's actually, I sort of picked this one, even though it was part of a larger, couple pages. and I'll kind of unpack that a little. But I teach classes, focused on the psychology of narratives. And one key concept that we talk about is the idea of transportation, the psychological state of being drawn into a story, both emotionally and cognitively, particularly on perspective taking of the characters. And the key way that creators do this is through encouraging identification with those characters, regardless of our own individual backgrounds and identities as audience members. There's something for everyone to connect to. And for me, I really felt connected with Karen because I was a monster kid growing up, a huge horror and fantasy fan. All the other kids were getting into the sports, and I just wanted to play D&D. I wanted to roll some dice, read some superhero comics, and watch horror movies. I unsettled many of my grade school peers wearing my Iron Maiden t-shirt in first grade and writing short stories based on Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and various vampire movies. When I got to junior high and high school, everyone else was listening to pop music. I was consumed with metal, grunge, and goth industrial. So feeling disconnected from the pulse of my peers was something that was very much salient to me. So that Valentine's Day sequence hit me where I lived. I could get sucked into it easily. I picked this particular page because actually the first page, the picture of the classroom, was a little too social pain relevant for me. That drew me in a little too close. But being able to kind of read the inner monologue here, and I love the part about the mutant Easter Bunny. And the notebook format reminded me very much of my high school notebooks, which I still have. And when I was bored, I doodled band logos in the margins. I didn't try anything more complicated because my stick figures don't even look like stick figures. But just all of the nostalgia and everything was really drew me in here. So,
anyone want to follow up on Eric? I
love the idea
go ahead, man.
that the image that you've chosen, despite the lush illustrations throughout this whole thing, it's really very text oriented. It's more informational. And knowing you as well as I do, I'm like, that makes perfect sense. Like, you really get into the story beats. Like, it's not even just like, oh, look at the prettiness. You're like, this is something that's really interesting, and it totally makes sense knowing you as well as I do. I'm kind of like, yeah, good call.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, thanks. I was thinking about what you were saying earlier, Victor, about this book kind of breaking those traditional rules of comics, and that feeling that this is almost zine-like. I love those moments where extra material from the characters' lives are brought into the page. Like this little doodle of the ghost, which is so cute. So yeah, the notebook format really kind of seems to encourage that kind of immersion, which I think is wonderful.
I agree. And I was just going to say that this moment of, this might be the first sort of nostalgic moment for me where I'm like, yeah, the Valentine's, being the one making weird notes and things, and thinking, I remember just sort of buying Valentine's and even thinking about making Valentine's. That whole thing is really weird, right? Having to give Valentine's to your classmates. But the idea of being the one making them, and then they're weird, and you get in trouble for them. You get in trouble for sharing something that you love, but there's always somebody who gets you. There's always one person, maybe one kid who gets you, and feeling that sense of okay, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be okay. You make your Valentine's.
I feel Valentine's and Halloween, those two holidays at school are the most controversial when you're going to a public school. Am I going to get a Valentine? Am I going to dress up as the right thing? So.
They both involve a certain level of horror, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Too much pressure.
But it's the easiest way to find your tribe, right? That's
true.
Those outward kind of showcases. You're okay, we're besties now. That's definitely it.
I'll send you a Valentine now that we know each other. Emil, did you want to respond to any of that?
No, we think you're.
I think you're muted.
Here.
There you go.
I'm talking.
No, you're fine now.
I'm talking to you from my studio, and it's incredibly cold here because there's actually very little heat. So I just turned on a space heater and forgot I had done that. So I just thank you for that, Eric. I appreciate you, all those things, and all of you. And Teresa, yeah, I mean, is it Teresa or Teresa? It's Teresa.
Teresa, yeah.
Teresa. That is totally the case. And yeah, and Rachel, yeah, I mean, I completely get what you're saying about there. And you, Victor, said there's that one person, like I would always bring monster Valentines. I would look for the ones that had monsters because I didn't want anything else. And I did actually make this Valentine, of course, in a slightly different situation, but I made the actual Valentine that is, I mean, that's true. I mean, it happened. And it was weird not to be gotten by like most people, like you say, it was a strange feeling to not have, but there is that one person, you're absolutely right. There is that one person who was like, yeah, oh yeah, monsters. Oh yeah. And you find them, and yeah, that's a great experience, when you do. And I think people who read comics generally are that one person, you know what I mean? Who they're the kid who brings the crazy thing to school. They're the kid who will support another kid who's a weirdo. And I just, yeah, I'm totally with that. And I think that's what I wanted to do with that page in part. Yeah.
Yeah, this whole conversation reminds me of when I was probably Karen's age. I was a lockheed kid, so I'd come home for lunch by myself for the first half hour when my mom would show up. And there was a kid at school who would always have the latest issue of Fangora or, one of those monster magazines. So I'd ask him if I could borrow it and take it home for lunch. And I would take it home and I'd sit at the table, and we lived in an old house, and I'd suddenly start hearing sounds. And next thing you know, I'm hiding between the refrigerator and the kitchen door. I did it all to myself, but there was no way I wasn't going to read Fangora if my buddy was going to let me take it home. That was an experience I didn't share with anyone. That was just me having my own private space where I was scared, but it was just fantastic. So that kind of memory experience is totally tied up with what you guys are talking about here.
I love that.
I love that story. I love that idea of you hiding like that. I mean, I almost did it the other day because in my studio, there is this one cabinet that literally opens completely by itself. Completely. It's a kitchen cabinet. And I know there's somebody else here, but I mean, I was like, no, you're not going to focus on that tonight because it was a big storm and there was like lightning crashing and then the thing was opening by itself. And I was like, if there had been a space between the refrigerator and the door,
you'd still be there right now.
Yeah,
I love it.
Scott, can you bring Eric's image up right quick?
Sure.
Because Emil, I have a question in terms of your handwriting, because you hand lettered this, correct?
Yeah.
Is this your natural handwriting, or did you take like an architecture class at some point?
No, no. That part where Karen is being taught how to letter by her brother, that happened. I mean, I was taught, and the person who taught me was far better at it than I am right now. But yeah, no, I mean, I was taught young by somebody who these is based on, who loved me and wanted me to be able to letter.
It's amazing.
Well, thank the dead person, as we always do, right? It's Halloween. It's time to thank the dead.
Of course.
Okay, so we're going to move on to Rachel's image. Rachel, this is sorry about that. Let me there we go. That's the correct image, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
I'm so glad you picked that page, Rachel, because I know I'm going to leave for a moment and show you something, but keep talking because I'm
excited. I can't wait. Yeah. So, I mean, this page is kind of like one of the first pages in the book, but it immediately came to mind because I'm very obsessed with that. Well, I guess this is the page for me that kind of summarizes what growing up feels like. I'm really kind of obsessed with these kind of private spaces that we have in our youth, like our bedroom spaces. My bedroom, for me at least, like this was a place where I discovered comics, where I discovered the music that I love. And so to just see Karen in her bedroom enjoying the things she loves, like these monster magazines, and then, you know, going through what to others might seem like a horrifying transformation, but to me, I think is an awesome transformation. You know, that's kind of what growing up is about, right? Like this kind of transformative feeling that you get when you encounter something that you love and you try and emulate it, or you know, in like your private space and your private moments. So I've always just like felt, you know, very connected to this particular page for that reason, because to me, this is just what it's all about. This is what growing up is. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Emil, did you want to?
I like that. Yes, I wanted to share this person with you. This is actually
Blemmy.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
this is not the first Blemmy. The first Blemmy got infected by a moth, and he literally he was as old as I am. He was 56, and I think he died. But this was made for me by a wonderful woman in France who recreated the Blemmy, and here he is.
That's incredible.
I just wanted to show you that.
I can't believe Blemmy made an appearance. That's amazing.
Blemmy made an appearance. Yes, Blemmy did. Blemmy is a really kind of an asshole. I hate to tell you that. I mean, I've been exploring Blemmy's personality, and Blemmy is an asshole. I mean, I just can't even tell you. But he had his head cut off, so I mean, you gotta cut the guy some slack. He has to. He's
pretty cute though. So.
He's cute, and so that's like why he gets away with all his shenanigans. But anyway, thank you for that. I appreciate that, Rachel. And, you know, that is such a great insight, because I remember, you know, doing monster things in front of a mirror in my bedroom. And I mean, I had so many fantasies about growing up and moving into that castle at the top of the tall, tall mountain and having my minions and, you know, and I believe this was going to be the truth. And the funny thing is, it was, you know, like what's funny about it is that I spent so much time thinking, oh, when am I going to get the bite? When is the bite going to come? I want the bite. And then I got it. I was, you know, 40, and I was bitten by a mosquito. And that's what led to me making this book. So I finally got the bite, and I became this monster, you know?
That's amazing.
But I mean, the wonderful thing is that time when you are so innocent of possibilities. And yet I think, and I say this to people who say, I don't know what I am. I don't know what I want to do. I say, what did you do before somebody told you you couldn't? That's what you are. That's who you are.
Very well said.
And I love it when people go, oh, and then they think of it. And then it seems like, well, sometimes, you know, maybe that's helpful to them. I hope so, because I think standardized education can really do harm to people. You know, the elementary school education, it can really turn people away from what they are. And I think we have to work so much in our lives to overcome that and to go back and find it. And you're talking about that moment when you're really still who you are. And I love that. That's a space everyone needs to be in a little more. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I love like this moment where we get to be in Karen's bedroom with her with no one else around. And like, I think our childhood bedrooms can be kind of laboratories where we try out, you know, different versions of who we are. Yeah. And so, you know, it's just a beautiful like moment with her.
Can I riff on that a little? Victor. Yeah, because like you kind of you're stirring something with me, Rachel, because those are living journal spaces for us, right? Like we adorn our walls with things that are popular to us in those moments. The things that we experience, our clothing, all of that lives in that space. So you're absolutely right. Like it's like this special portal of a you know, I don't even know, like of yourself. Like that's kind of brilliant. Yeah. I personally didn't have a TV in my bedroom for a long time, so it really forced me to kind of get involved with other media that I would, you know, actually align myself with. Music, definitely comics. Am I the only one that had that, or did you guys have TVs as well?
I ahead.
No, I didn't have a TV.
Oh.
No,
Okay.
no. It was
So maybe
comics,
No, I would just
Maybe that's us then.
fantasy novels,
Victor, I
games.
had I would collect like all this cast off like technology in my room, not a TV, but I had a tape deck that was hooked up to a record player so I could record from the record player onto my tapes.
Nice.
And I spent like hours doing
Oh
this.
yeah.
That's what
And
I'm
you
no
put
talking
it in your
about.
reason.
boom box and take it around the neighborhood.
You know what I'm saying?
Take your tunes with you. What I love about that image is it's a glorious moment of growth that's also incredibly painful. And then when I look at her sort of rejoicing in this painful approach response to life, you look at the rest of the adult characters and you kind of see, who's still willing to painfully embrace what they want? And some characters quit and some characters haven't. And I love the idea that growth is not about smiling. Growth is about being, and it can be painful, and learning how to embrace that as opposed to avoid that is the cost of, continuing to grow. So I absolutely love it. So here's what I'm going to do. Oh, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said that's beautifully said. Thank
No,
you. Yeah, I like
thanks. So
that.
what I'm going to do
Stealing
is
You'll read it in another book. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. But maybe.
That's all right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you guys my favorite sequence, and it has to do with the character Franklin. And so what we see here is Franklin helping Karen. She's just been assaulted, almost raped, I would say. Franklin comes to help. And then what we see is the visual imagery expressing how Karen feels, right? So here he's wiping dust off of her clothes and his hands look like angels. Then we get this frame, and if you're paying attention, you just saw that face. So you're starting to see the introduction of the Frankenstein theme. And then you see him full-fleshed, more and more becoming in the Frankenstein theme. And you see the nuns chasing basically Karen. He's telling her, you better run. And then this just gorgeous page. If all the pieces fell away, I got the idea that what was inside of him was just a ball of bright light. And what that does is completely reverse Frankenstein's scars, right? They're not holding, they're holding beauty in, right? They're not keeping something ugly together. They're holding something beautiful within. And then they go into the art museum and we start to see him identify with the paintings in his way. He imagines himself dressed up as the female characters in the paintings. And I'm just going to go through these images. I'm not going to read all the text, but you can see that he's experimenting with the art museum as his room, if you like, in this safe space where he can imagine himself being all these different women. And then there's this line here. I'll see if I can read it because this is an extremely stunning image and text. I got to make it a little bigger on my screen so I can read it. It says, oh my, you wore your best coat into the wrong neighborhood too, huh? And then you just could not stop yourself from offering style advice to boys with knives. You just couldn't hold, and then you just couldn't hold your tongue. And now look at you. So all that identity transformation, all that identity simulation comes to this terribly prescient, poignant moment about being an African-American male in the United States in the 60s and ends with that line. And I just thought what follows in the story is his realization that MLK has been assassinated. And then he confronts the world outside of the museum that does not accept him for the person he's imagined himself to be. I thought it was just awesome.
Franklin is definitely one of those characters that you have to stop and recognize that there's a point to him. He's probably one of the bravest characters of the whole book because he lived his difference out loud at a time when it wasn't acceptable on almost every level that he existed. Him being a Black man, no, you're not going to get that pass. Him being openly gay, not going to get that pass. And the fact that he, even with his face disfigured and scarred, he still didn't stop. He's literally the bravest person in the entire book.
I agree. Totally.
He's actually my favorite character, to be honest. I thought what you did to him visually was just memorable and
Well, he's the
haunting.
genesis. He's like, he and Karen are the genesis of the whole book. I had a vision. This was long before I ever published this book, because this book had a lot of lives before. And I wrote a short story based on this vision. And the vision was simply that I saw this beautiful man, black man, open his raincoat. It was raining in the vision, and envelop a little lesbian Latina werewolf. And I was like crying. I cried and cried and cried. I couldn't stop for like an hour and a half. And I was like, what is this that I just saw? And I said to myself, I have to understand who these people are. I have to understand who they are and what they mean to each other. And in the vision, they went and they stood and they looked through a chain link fence at some tulips, and the rain had destroyed the tulips, kind of. They'd taken all the petals off, but they still saw beauty in the center pistil of the tulip. And I was like, my God, you're alive. You just did something else. And I was like, I've got to know. And it was Franklin's warmth and his strength that you've really touched on, Scott. And that is absolutely, it was so critical to me. So you will, God willing, you will see more of Franklin in the future, and you will know more about him. And he is exactly what you say, Victor. He is the strongest, most amazing character in some ways in this book. You know, I can't wait to have you know that.
Fantastic. Jenna, Amelia, do we have any questions from the audience?
Sorry, I just wanted to add one thing, and that is that I think this sequence really circles back and points to the role of art and the art pieces, but different art in different contexts, right? Different kinds of art, and questions of what is beauty and what is beautiful, that start from the very beginning when we're introduced to the Art Institute. That even just that act of going to the Art Institute, which was for me at that age completely a foreign exercise. I don't think I went to a museum till I was an adult. And to be able to go to an art institute, you know, like Chicago, like Detroit, that kind of thing is, and to go regularly is such an amazing experience. And then to have a little bit of education about that and to feel immersed in the art. And then in that moment, in that sequence with Franklin, to have his character emerge from the art and become so artful. I think it's just beautiful. And when I was reading that part, I'm thinking back to all of these moments and how I don't even know how to fully express how happy this makes me to see, you know, there's a Seurat painting here. There's all these other works. And I'm like, I've seen these. But as an adult, I've experienced them as an adult, and how I hope to bring all of that to my nieces and nephews who are now 4 and 6 and 8, so that they can have those experiences very early on, and also realize that they can be part of that they're not separate from it. It's not a foreign experience. Oh, yeah. They can very much be, I take them crayons, I'm the art aunt. And every Christmas, birthday, no matter what it is, they get things to create with. And that's how they know me. And I'm like, oh, I need to level up now. I need to start taking them to these places.
Oh, that's wonderful.
These things. Yeah, that's what I was telling me.
I'm Teresa. I think we need to clone you. And we do. We need to clone you, and we need all children to have an art aunt, Teresa the art aunt.
That's true.
These days it's looking very possible. I mean, we have Sophia, we have many robots, but we need an art aunt for everyone. And I actually believe this will solve the problems of the world. I so fully believe in art that it will solve all the problems of the world. Because the bugs, the parasites that we call whatever we call them, they will shrink when the vibration of our creativity is so great that it just shrinks them. And I think the art ant is the beginning of that. And I mean, I'm so thankful for you to do that. And you touched on something that's really critically important to me. And I want to quickly say this. When I made this book, what upset me and concerned me was how people did not feel that the world of the museum was their heritage. And I think that there are aspects to that. Certainly, we're beginning to understand that the museum has to reflect us. It has to reflect everyone, not just, you know, Western European, you know, people, but everyone. And it can, because all cultures have produced work of magnificence. And this is so important. But nonetheless, whatever it is that they're going to see there, it's theirs. It belongs to them. It's a human right. It's not a cultural right based on race or ethnicity or country of origin. It's just, art is a human right, and the right to be in the museum and that to be yours and to engage with it, because we're never taught that, especially in the United States. And I wanted that to change. And so one funny thing happened. There's a painting that you see early on, and it's St. George and the Dragon. Well, that painting used to hang just about at the height of a person's head, an adult's head. And so it was complete. You could have touched it, not that you would, but you could have. Because of my book, I'm almost certain it now hangs 15 feet up from the ground. And I just have to say to you, I think that, I don't know, somehow it's a weird victory for the book that they had to hang it that high, because I think people came and they wanted to be interacting with it. Maybe some people tried to go in, I don't know. But it's important to me. Thank you for bringing that up about the museum. I appreciate it.
I do love that moment where Karen like literally crawls inside the painting, and like Teresa, Emil, like that idea that art is the thing that we can crawl inside of and transcend kind of our, you know, current physical conditions is one of the most important things I think is a part of this book and this world. So
yeah, thank you so much
for that.
That is absolutely something that and the book is so strange. So many of the paintings are in France. And what happened to me is that I spent my life loving these paintings and, you know, crawling into them. And then I ended up in the actual places that were painted. I ended up in France because of the book, in the places that I had loved going in my imagination. Just weird. You know, our experience on this planet is so, and that's what goes to that vibratory thing. I think we are vibrational beings, and what we vibrate manifests. Which is why it's so necessary to the powers that be to control us, because we can manifest so much beauty and power and glory. And for some reason, that's not in the cards as far as they're concerned. I'm not quite sure why that is, but it sure seems like it's problematic for them. But I think we'll win. I'm just believing that we'll win, because that power of the imagination is so much greater than anything else out there. It really is.
It's incredible what you're saying here, because my experience of why is it that we don't experience our collective power is because we live in a space that amplifies our individual ego. We don't feel ourselves creating the world we live in. When we go to the pump and we buy gas, we don't feel ourselves sustaining, a certain lifestyle across the ocean. We don't feel ourselves as a part of a bigger space because we're not raised to be or to experience ourselves in that collective way. 20% of the world's cultures live in those types of spaces. 20% of the world's population lives in those kind of spaces, and it's the United States and Western Europe. When you go outside of those, the other 80% of the world lives in much more collectively oriented spaces. You're right. When people suddenly start to experience themselves as creating the world they live in, as opposed to responding to it, power gets released. Black Lives Matter now is painted on streets. because people recognize their collective power, right? And so we're seeing a generation come develop its superpowers, and hopefully that can continue. So Emil, do you have any questions of us?
Yeah, sure, but I mean, they're stupid. Are you sure you want to be asked them?
No, they're
There's
not.
such thing as a stupid question. Come on.
Okay, what are your astrological signs?
I'm
Ooh,
Capricorn.
I love this.
Did she really just say that? Did she really just?
I'm all about it. Let's.
Okay, good.
So I'm an Aries.
I'm Capricorn.
Oh yeah, of course you are. Get out of here, Aries. You conqueror. You are such conquerors. Oh my God. It's so clear. It's so clear. Stop it. Stop it with your Aries stuff.
My
I know
King
you.
hat. I mean, this is what we do.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Yeah,
yeah.
the king. Oh my gosh. It's so
What's funny, Emil, is we've actually done this before, because I actually plugged into a Zoom conversation you were having with a group out of Milwaukee called the Comic-Con panel.
yeah.
And of course, I'm a Libra.
Oh yeah. You guys balance. Woo.
I try.
Yeah, that's right. But you also go and you're like, which barbecue sauce is the best? I can't make this decision. It's
Yeah,
very
exactly.
trying.
Exactly.
It's very upsetting.
Well, then I asked someone else what I should do.
Yeah, exactly. My daughter has her moon in Libra and she's like, Mama, I don't know what yeah, Libra, you're great. But you're always good people. I've never met a Libra that was, a terrible
Oh
person.
my goodness. Oh my
Never.
goodness.
And I'm
How
sure
about you? How about you, Eric?
I think I'm a Scorpio.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh,
Oh my gosh.
It's your season, bro.
Yeah.
it is Scorpio season.
My birthday was yesterday, so.
Hey, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
How did I
birthday.
not see that? Oh, for shame.
That's cool. That's very cool. So you have the either the glory or the taint of birthdayness on you as we speak to you. But it's on your back.
Here, the
It's on your back.
I am a Pisces, so also a water sign.
So you're psychic and scary. Yeah.
Yes. Yes to
Pisces
both.
are the most psychic of all the signs, and frankly, the scariest. Like you can offend a Scorpio and they will hurt you, and then it's over, right? Because Scorpios have that tail and they remember. But Pisces, you can offend a Pisces, it will not. That is never. You're done, man.
Oh
They'll
yeah,
just
we're
end.
the ocean. We're the ocean.
Yeah. The power of the
The
ocean.
deep.
That's scary stuff.
Mhm.
The deep. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm with you.
Well, I don't know if you've heard, but I'm a Capricorn. So
Oh my gosh, my favorite person in the world. One of the people who I love the most in the world is a Capricorn. And he was the fairest person I've ever known. And the most organized. Because Capricorns love to organize. My God, do you organize?
I do, but I have what I call organized chaos. So I'll have organized like on the surface level. I got my pens, I got everything, but then around me, it's madness. I say
That's fine.
the monkeys rule my life, but you can't see it, right?
You must have something in your moon that does that to you.
Quite possibly. I don't know.
We have to figure out your natal chart. And
I
you
feel
know how
like I feel like we're bonding here, and we need to become best friends. I'm just saying.
Okay, I'm with you. I need more best friends because I don't talk to people for sometimes weeks at a time. And then I walk outside and I'm talking to myself as I do in my studio, and people are looking at me like and moving their children closer to themselves. And I'm like, you have gone crazy. You are crazy. But it's okay, right? Because then I say to them, hey, I'm not as crazy as you think I am.
Yeah.
I'm crazier.
Yeah.
Emil,
I'm
Emil,
sorry.
what's your sign? What's
Oh my
your sign,
gosh,
Emil?
don't you know? Isn't it so obvious? Like Victor had Aries just like smeared all over him.
I exude. I do.
Yeah, he exudes it. And then I am so Leo. Isn't it sad? Isn't it sad? I was born with teeth. I was actually born with Karen's teeth, and a dentist sawed them down. Yeah, because I had my fangs. Born with fangs.
What?
Yeah, I'm a Leo tiger, born in the year of the tiger. I'm all beast.
Super Panther. Super Panther. That's all.
I like Super Panther, although it sounds like Super Diaper, kind of. But,
Oh, let me enunciate better.
I love the idea.
No, not when you say it. It's just it kind of sounds like, but I like it, Super Panther. But it somehow, yeah.
I can hear the pamper
Anyway,
in there.
Okay. So anybody, do we know about Amelia? Is she going to tell us, or Summer? Do they not get to talk? Or are they the silent partners tonight?
Well, I'll jump in because I just learned that Eric and I share a birthday. Yesterday was my birthday. I'm Scorpio too.
Oh my gosh, you had no idea.
Look at that.
We had no idea.
Are you also like fraternal twins? No, I'm just kidding.
Happy birthday.
That would be like, if you didn't know that, that would be a great made for TV movie.
Right.
I was born in,
two professors.
Yeah, two
Finding
professors.
themselves.
No. Yeah. So you are a Scorpio. Yikes.
I am a Scorpio. Yep.
Scorpios are the sex. They are just like sex. You guys are sex.
Eric, how many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids.
Okay. Amelia's got 2. Eric,
That
how
we
many
know of.
Eric's got 5. Okay, there it is. There it is.
Whoa, that
There
was
it
terrible,
is.
but good. That was really good.
Amelia, you came in the room. You know what I'm saying?
And then we've got Jana and we've got Summer, but they don't have to say it if they don't believe. If they're not believers in the great truth of astrology, we will forgive them.
I am a Libra. I like balance. I like everybody to get along.
Okay.
Now that's an interesting thing. There must be different types of Libras, because I'm not a Libra that's going to put my position aside for the sake of balance. Y'all got to make sense, and then we'll talk about balance.
That's your moon talking, sir.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Moon talking.
That's the moon.
Yeah.
That's the moon.
You sound like you got an Aries moon. That's what it sounds
Thank
like.
you. Thank you. I was just thinking that. That's so funny. I was just thinking that. Or a Leo moon. Also really hard to have. People with Leo moons, I pity them.
Ooh, I have a Leo moon.
Wait, you do? Oh, geez, Lord. You could be a serial killer. Do you realize that? I mean, hello. Oh my God.
Columbus will do that to you.
Yeah, I'm just a writer and academic, so I channel all the energy.
Channel it, which is like, thankfully, that's lucky for the world, man.
Which is exactly what a serial killer would say if they were trying to kill us off the track.
You know what I'm saying?
See, look at that. Take it from the Scorpio to
saying
to sense this.
Rachel, you be killing it in the game though, so I see how you do.
That's why I try.
And Summer's not gonna chime
I'm
in.
a Gemini.
Oh,
so there's Summer and there's Summer.
Yeah, I'm of 2 minds of about everything.
You guys are scary. Can I just say that to you? You're great and I love you, but there's so 2 of you. Every Gemini I know, it's like, which one are you now? Yeah. God, that's
I've
cool.
not seen the other summer, so.
Have you?
I've not. No.
That you know of.
This summer.
That
exactly.
you know of.
I mean, it's just
you might not have.
By default, we've come up with quite an eclectic crew right here. We have diverse expertise here, and that's kind of
a lot of convergence in the Midwest.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just said there's a lot of Midwest convergence here. We've got Columbus, Ohio. We've got Illinois, and I went to Ohio State, which is how I know Victor and Rachel. And so there's something about the Midwest, and where I live right now in Modesto, even though I'm in California, it's very Midwest sensibility, but brown, which I love.
Oh, that's nice.
Very nice.
That's very nice. And you've got the great weather too.
Yeah. There's also something about the Midwest that I'd have to say that's where I sort of discovered that it's okay to be more than one thing. Because up until I went to Ohio State, it was very like, pick a lane. You're either a scholar, or if you want to be an artist, then go do something else. You can't be both. And it was at OSU where it became very acceptable to, like, why would you only have one lane? Of course you're going to be in 2 lanes. Of course, you're not just a scholar, but you're also Latina. You also paint. You also oh, you're into comics, you're also a writer, you're also, and it was like, that was okay. And then I realized through that I don't have to ask permission. Why am I asking if it's okay? Just do the thing that you want to do. Going back to what Emil was saying about who was it or what was it that happened, or who was it who told you that you couldn't or that you shouldn't, right? That's who you are. And when I was a graduate scholar, there was a professor who, I think it was Robin Warhol at Ohio State. I was going to work on, I don't even know what. And she was like, really? Is that what you really want to work on? Or is there something else? And I was ready to work on the thing that I thought was acceptable. I can't remember the author's name at this point. And I said, well, actually, there are all these, Latino authors, and I'm starting to get into comics. And she was like, why aren't you doing that? And I went, oh, I can do that.
That's one thing I really do like about this book is that it's just a testament to intersectionality. It's just letting people go through the tension of wanting to be all the things they want to be. My dad's hillbilly raised in Mississippi. Guy has what I call hillbilly backbone. You can push my dad to a point and then it's over. So when I wanted to watch my cartoons, if I was told I couldn't, I'd just find a way. And it was that, whatever it was, it's that thing that keeps me from being a Libra that takes it, right? And it's that, no, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to do that. And that's what drove me to stay with fantasy novels, go to graduate school, now come back and combine those two into things that we do here. Whatever it is, I tell my kids, when I wake up in the morning, if I've had my second cup of coffee and I'm ready to sit and create, whatever it is, I just thank God that that's back today. Because one of these days it may not be. And that's a day that scares the hell out of me.
No, I love that. I love that. And I want to tell you something about that. When I was a kid in Uptown, and this may not be, you may not know about this, or you may, I don't know. The white Appalachian people, and there were so many, who came there organized because they were being treated so badly. And so you're nodding, so you know this. And there's a book written about it, which I read, and it informed a lot of, because I was a kid. So I saw the fathers, you talk about your father, but I saw the fathers of my friends, and they were some strong men who really stood up for their community, and they fought the landlords because the landlords were not doing things. They were not giving them heat. They were not making sure that they had hot water. They were, forcing them to live in really terrible conditions and charging them right, through the nose for terrible apartments. So they organized and they became powerful in Uptown. And that was a matter of pride for those kids. And those kids were the worst. I mean, you did not want to deal with those kids in a fight. Those kids were tough kids. They knew how to fight. You had to know how to fight if you grew up in their families, because that was expected. But I think they also had enormous pride in their parents, who had organized and fought and tried to make a good life for their children. And, that's the thing I wanted to I didn't get there. I mean, that's coming. More about that is coming, because it's so important for people to understand that there's always been an underclass in this country, and it hasn't been limited to race. It hasn't been only a racial thing. It's been poverty, and poverty has had all kinds of different faces, and it's been treated badly. But it has still stood up, people raise their children to do greater things. I know plenty of those kids who were raised by people who had a 4th grade education, and they made damn sure their kids got better than that. And I think it's beautiful. That's when America is beautiful, and it is, despite what anybody wants to say, America is a damn beautiful country. Its people are beautiful. Its people are good, and its people are strong. And I wanted to talk about that. And I wanted to celebrate that. So there I'm on my soapbox.
I think, no, your comments about class are terribly important, because poverty is real, and it has disproportionately affected the minority populations. And it's ironic that who created the constraints over the past 40 years that have certain portions of our population blaming other minority groups and women for the state of affairs when we're in, when in fact it wasn't people of color or women at all.
No.
And when we start having that conversation more and more, I think we can work to change the narrative about how to get through what we're going through right now. Right.
I could not agree more.
We got to talk about poverty, and then we have to talk about how we got there. And
well, we're being divided right now as a nation.
Totally.
And I'm sick of it. I got to be honest with you. I want to find a Republican and I want to love the hell out of them. I want to love them so much. I want them to be my best friend. I want to hang out with them. I want to understand what the hell they think about everything. I mean, on the other side, I'm not probably as far left as some of my friends, and I want to hang with them and understand what the hell do you really believe? Why do you believe what you believe? I want to love people who don't with me. And I think that's an act of incredible rebellion in our society, the way we're being pushed to hate each other, which I think is complete bullshit. It's just, it makes me very angry, and we are coming to a bad place. This is what you do when you want to take a country over. And I mean, who the hell is doing this to us? And I am just always asking, who the hell is doing this to us? Who the hell is making me hate these people over here? I don't like the things they believe. I mean, I'm never going to like the things they believe, but I want to love them.
Yes.
Because when it comes down to the tentacles landing from above, it's me and them that's going to have to fight them off.
Right.
And I mean, exactly. I don't like the things they believe, but the tentacles. I mean, I can't reason with the tentacles.
Tentacles are always worse.
I need to reason with my. Yeah. And so this is the thing. We've got to come to this. We have to do this. Each of us have to find somebody who's onerous to us and try to remain in contact and stay a country. Otherwise, we're going to split apart. And I see it happening by 2030. I really do. I mark my words. I see it happening.
I do think your book points in a useful direction in that approaching and embracing the tension of growth, embracing and approaching the anxiety of difference, and cultivating an approach response in us instead of cultivating an avoidance response, which I think is rather responsible for. Yeah,
that's the value. And I like you say the when you talked about the something of anxiety, I don't know how you put it.
No, the anxiety of generating an approach response to the unknown other. How do we do that knowing we might be anxious and scared because we don't know? And
it's literally in the title, because the truth is the best way for us to do it is to recognize that we all have a monster in us. And as long as we find that sensibility that says that we're not so high and mighty, we're not so on this platform soapbox better than anybody else, we all have a monster. And so in some places that's our favorite thing about us. The sooner we can embrace that, we'll all be there.
I love that. I'm so with that. I so agree with that.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing about fiction and art and stories, which we're talking about stories. And stories are how we understand everything. That's how we learn. That's how we are. That's how we exist. That's how we define ourselves. It's stories. And stories are so important to our future. And the story, I think, as a nation that we have to tell ourselves is that we went through something really difficult and it caused us to understand each other better. I mean, I think we have to find a way that's what happens. Otherwise, we're in a great deal of jeopardy. But this empathy that you learn because of a story, I wanted you to have, I mean, there are obnoxious characters. Mrs. Gronin is always obnoxious to me. And you'll love her so much in the future that you will not believe how much you love her. And she's not going to be lovable. And yet you're going to love that so much. and the same is true with the brain. The brain is I don't know, you're going to be like, do I love this character or not? And I want you to have those moments. I want you to have those moments where you don't know. D's too. I mean, holy hell.
Yeah.
But like,
can I ask a question before we run out of time? I want to come deep into the book for a second, and because I'm a process nerd and I love hearing about tools and how things are created. And also, we haven't talked about the line work at all, which is just, I mean, if anything, the line work in this book is so, it's just so beautiful. Doesn't encompass it. There's something about the line work and the
It's immaculate.
And it's evocative. That's the word I want.
There it is.
So evocative. So I really want to hear about what you use to create the book and why those tools.
Well, you know, it had to be Big Pen because that's what I did as a kid. And, you know, there were other issues. Big Pen is kind of forgiving the way I do it. So I don't have the same kind of control over my right hand because I still have the issues of paralysis that I have to deal with. So making these many small marks and building form up that way is easier for me. I mean, I do a little thing where I show, you know, I was a sculptor and this is my left hand, of course. And this, of course, is my right hand. It's just not, it doesn't have the dexterity. It doesn't have the speed. So, I mean, it's just not what it once was. And so those small marks are what I could do to build form. And that worked, you know, and there was a lot of small marks. So, yeah, I mean, it just had to be for this project. It had to be the Big Pen because the Big Pen, as a kid whose parents were both artists and we didn't have anything. We lived in a public housing building, and there just wasn't anything. You know, I mean, there was hot dogs for dinner, if we were lucky, every night for a long time. And I even remember as a kid being hungry and just like sneaking some of the dog's food, you know, which was crunchy and kind of good. But I mean, the point is, when I was given that notebook and when I was given those pens, I was given a world that opened up to me. And it was like all those blank pages. I still remember I bought some notebooks today and I do it all the time. I have lots of notebooks because I'm a crazy person. And it's just the possibility. It's just every page is possibility.
Yep.
And it had to be like that, you know. So the process was that very quickly I realized that if I drew it exactly on a lined notebook, I was screwed because you can't correct anything. You can't make a drawing shrink a little bit or change some lettering. It's forever. Those blue lines make editing impossible. So I had to, you know, I think I did 20 or 30 pages on lined notebook paper. And then I had to do it with layers. I had to scan an image of a lined notebook and then drew drawings that went on it. And when, you know, because I didn't anticipate, Teresa, never anticipated that this book would be translated into like 6 or 8 languages. I think it's either 6 or 8, I can't remember. But anyway, I never really anticipated that. So it was a great thing that we did not have to edit those blue lines out. So yeah, because it would have made translating, you know, really onerous. So.
Emil, I've been really curious about this because I got my copy of this book when it first came out. Like I remember like that Wednesday when it came out, I was like, oh, I have to go out and get this book. So it's been super well loved. Yeah. But I've taught this book a lot in my classes, and then seeing the pages that people put up tonight, I've noticed that some of my pages are slightly different than, so are there two different like versions of this book, or did you go back and change things? Or I'm just yeah, I've always wanted to know.
That's a great question, and you're absolutely right. And I am so much, my moon is in Virgo. So all of you who know what that means, it means that details matter so much to me, and I can be obsessed about an eye. Like, okay, that eye's wrong, and I can go back and redo a whole page because I don't like an eye in the page, and that is just how I am. I mean, I hated it about myself, and then I had a reading from an astrologer, a really good one, you know, and she said, no, and this is before the book was ever written. She said, no, you're being having that picky weirdo Virgo moon is going to really work for you in the future. You don't know how much. And she was so right about that. Oh my God. But that's me going, I don't like that drawing because one of them was of D's. It's the one that Teresa talks about. And I didn't like the original page because I wanted him to be in color, because I wanted you to immediately know that he was, he exists inside of me as this man of very flawed, but of incredible complexity and beauty. And you didn't see that in the original drawing. It just didn't convey that. And so it had to be changed. And those kinds of things are important to me. Like I want you to have an experience that is as rich as I can possibly give, This is what I have to offer you. Yeah.
That's
But I
fantastic.
appreciate you talking about that because that happened. And so your book sells for like $1,000 now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're very rare.
Well,
I mean, I've always wondered like what that was. Like, I was like, am I just like weird and like what's going on? So
come on, you don't need this book to tell you that, Pisces.
Yep.
Pisces Leo. You don't need that. I'm sorry. And you like comics, so I mean, we're all just really weird.
Well, on that note, I think we'll give Rachel the last question of the evening. It's getting time to bring the panel to a close. Give me just a second here. We'll see you at our next ReggieCon panel on Thursday, November 11th at 7 p.m. when we celebrate Native American Heritage Month with a discussion of the graphic novel Ghost River with author Dr. Lee Francis IV. Sorry, I get my cursor to work. Again, thanks to all of you for attending. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for making us look like we know what we do. Dr. Miller, thank you. Emil, thank you so much, everyone.
Well, can I thank you all so much for an enjoyable evening and for allowing me to speak to other humans. I've enjoyed it so much, or whatever you are, monsters, I think perhaps. But
we are all monsters, absolutely.
Yes, you sure are, and I love that. Thank you very much for being here with me tonight, and thank you, Scott. Thank you.